From this most indicative of 20th century life. More than all the little paintings with all the abstract drawings and stuff. People look at it and say, oh, that's nice. Who did that? Picasso. Or the music that goes, I mean, that's, man, you know. Even the people who write that don't like it. So, you know, we don't like it. I mean, it's 20th century, you know. Boop, bip, boop, it, boop, bip, boop, bip, boop, boop, bip, boop, it. Swing, man. Rhythm. Rhythm is king in the 20th century. Swing. See all these songs we have out here is rhythm. Rhythm. That's what the key is. All the computers. Rhythm. That's what the jazz musician thing is about. Every instrument is a drum and that instrument. Trumpet is a drum and a trumpet. Bass is a bass and a drum. Classical music is difficult like being an actor. You have to bring a role to life. Because classical music is Western art that's in the past tense. In other words, the music is already committed to the score and it's already written down. Everybody knows what they're gonna play. So the problem then is to execute it correctly and try to bring whatever humor and drama is in the music out to the audience. That's basically what the problem is. In jazz, we have a totally different set of variables that come into play because jazz, like I said before, is the only Western art form in the present tense. So it's the only art form that's created, developed, and presented to the audience as it goes on. It's like the most complete 20th century art form.
Alan White making morning sounds at WWOZ 90.7 on your FM dial to Orleans. And if you just arrived in our community, you have arrived, of course, in the jazz capital of America. And if you came here with the express purpose of going to the World's Fair, you have not made a mistake. Buddy Rich's band, Sarah Vaughan, Dizzy Gillespie at the amphitheater, Art Blakey, Duke Ellington, Woody Herman and the Thundering Herd, and of course, our own Wynton Marsalis.
When Wynton received his Grammys, instead of being joyous and happy about the Grammys, I was sort of worrying about, what's going to happen, how much pressure is going to be placed upon him now that he's won the Grammys at such a young age. And there were times when I was very happy about it and felt that he could handle everything. So I think it'll work out. There's my husband, who's a pianist and a composer and a teacher. Wynton, who's a trumpet player, and Branford, who's a saxophone and reeds player. And there's Delphio, a trombonist. And there's Jason, who was born a drummer. My children came up in the 60s. Very troubling times for blacks and whites. I mean, this was the time where the change was being made, and Martin Luther King told us that it was all right to go to school with whites. And I sent them to a school where it was 98% white. And I think at that time, by Wynton being the thinker that he is, he sort of searched for something that was his own.
329 Webster Street, residence of Skane as a young man. Now, this is where we used to play ball and stuff on the street, right, Sidney?
Yeah.
And we never would lose.
Never.
Except for when somebody would beat us.
Yeah. Not ever.
We go to the store around the corner, man. We used to just hang out the levee, the river right there. This is the crib. Sidney lived right over there. All of us, man.
All of us.
We had fun, man. Jack, remember when Jack and them moved over there?
Yeah.
I had my basketball goal in the back.
Right.
You used to be
We used to play ball right there in the back.
Play basketball in the backyard.
And it was nice, though.
When the boys were small, I wanted them to have something to be able to express themselves creatively. At the time, my husband was on the road playing with Al Hurt. And I think it was Al Hurt who gave Wynton his first trumpet. And my husband would come home on weekends, and friends would come by to visit. And my husband would play, and his friends would play, and Branford and Wynton, who were at the time like 8, 9 years old, would go and get their instruments and sit in. And they would just love it. My husband, a very good teacher, he knew how to give them enough space to make them improvise. I remember he would stop playing. When Branford or Wynton would blow their instrument, my husband would stop. Give them the space to improvise and make it sound like something. I thought that was very neat.
I wasn't concerned as to whether they would become musicians or not. In fact, in the earlier years, I thought Wynton would probably go into science because he was always a good student. But the thing that I try to do is always present music in a positive light. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can learn how to play this classical music. Learning jazz is not as easy. The platform, if you will, to develop these skills are not centrally located. There's no one space that you can do that, because learning jazz is like trying to catch a snake. So you really have to almost live by your wits in a way.
Well, when I was in high school, I didn't really know enough about playing jazz to find that much of a difference. Because then that was during the 70s when everybody was calling pop music jazz. So I couldn't really seriously play jazz. It was a lot easier for me to get better playing classical music because classical music was much more set and more regimented. Everybody knew what it was. Then I became interested in classical music. I went to the New Orleans Center for the Creative Arts, which is a great high school. I learned a lot there. And I had a theory teacher, Bert Bro. We used to call him Doc. I said, look out, Doc. So Doc taught us a lot of stuff about theory and stuff. By the time I had gone to Juilliard, I knew most of the theory. We had a great theory class.
Why are you slowing down there?
I don't know, I just feel slow down, a little rubato in that. Because it's at the peak of the phrase, and I'm trying to make it
What
seem
composer
like
is that?
It's Beethoven.
Is that romantic?
He
Almost.
was constantly kicking himself about how bad a trumpet player he was. And he wasn't too far wrong, because he wasn't that great, you see. I mean, he had, among his peers at that age, he could not compete with some of them. But the thing that amazes me most about it is the incredible short time that it took for him to make every single plateau in playing music. You know, his plateau, for example, his idea of performing was to go and stand in the corner for hours and just work on his attack. And he'd do that. And he'd do it to the point where hours just doing that. Then he'd come back the next day and his attack was much better. And the next day and the next day and the next day, the patience, you know, to do that. Which is what a lot of this is about anyway. But he had that fortitude to do that. But he always realized, you know, I'm not good, I'm not this. And he never was first trumpet in all state until the end, towards the end, you know. But then, after he reached those other plateaus, he just kept going, where some students would stop or level off. He just kept going.
All right. There's an air of anticipation. I can feel it, I can hear it. And one of the reasons is the group that we're going to bring on right now. And this is New Orleans' own Wynton Marsalis.
Come on. This guy, we just met him and we're in London.
We're from New York, right?
Right, he's from New York.
Where you from?
You can't, this is the part where you have to leave. All right.
Son of a gun.
What was that? Can you play it again?
No, huh?
What was that the name of that place?
Peckham.
Right.
No, but we ain't gonna be playing it. We're gonna be playing in Brixton this time.
Yeah, Brixton, Peckham. I'm from the United States, man. I don't care where we play. From the Crescent City, brother.
With Wynton now. I think that's much more in the style of a trumpet piece. Mm-hmm. Very good.
And in a jazz recording, either you have the right people or you don't have them. In a classical recording, there's hope that we rehearse it'll get better. In jazz, you can rehearse till next year and it won't get better. Because a lot of the things in jazz can't be rehearsed or taught.
Still keep it tongued, I think, but make it double. And then that's where you really begin again. The one aspect that is common to both, or at least where the jazz playing might influence his ability in classical music, is this extraordinary fluency and fluidity. There are two things, really. You have to have ears out like antennae, when you play jazz, to listen to exactly what your neighbor's doing, and if he's doing something in the way of improvisation, you have to respond to it. And so it makes him a natural, as far as that's concerned. And I think it explains why his response to what an orchestra is doing around him, or indeed the input of musical ideas, is so extraordinarily vivid and immediate.
All right, now the dynamics all right?
Yeah, I think they work beautifully. No problem.
Intonation
oh, that's good. No, it's great. That was good then.
Great.
Okay, everybody, beginning. But I think what makes him much more interesting is this extraordinary directness that he has. It's not an innocent, he's not at all innocent, but he has a marvelously naive, direct approach to music. So our first chords are loud. If you remember to come in very softly and then make the crescendo, I think it'll work better. Rather strong, our first three chords.
London concert, and we've got the possibility of New York Philharmonic with Zubin Mehta, who is bringing his orchestra to close a big American festival that we're running. Paris, we'll certainly get a date. It might even be we could put you with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra in Paris, if you don't you want to go in first of all with an American group?
Well, I'd rather not do that.
You prefer
personally? I prefer to go there and play with the musicians that are there.
One thing is absolutely certain, isn't it? You're not going to do classical and jazz together. That's still absolutely out of the question.
Totally. A lot of times, Europeans or the critics try to take away from the jazz musicians by saying, well, I always read that they say Duke Ellington sounds like Debussy or some asinine bull crap. Hey man, Debussy sounds like Bach. Bach had 9 chords in his thing. Well, Bach, but Debussy, he used parallel 9 chords, and that made it new innovation. But Duke Ellington used swing. So right there, that automatically, Debussy wouldn't have known swing if it walked up to him and hit him. Stravinsky's the first European composer to use a backbeat like that. It made him famous, man. I mean, he was a great composer. I'm not saying to think that I could sit down and encapsulate all of the great works of Stravinsky. He wrote so much music, and I love his music. But the same way that all the Europeans and the critics and all these people who want to relegate our music to some little folk art, type thing. Always try to use whatever element of European music we use to cut us down. We could say, well, look, he got obviously where it's obvious where he got the backbeat from. It wasn't from his head. Yeah, backbeat, man. Bing, 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 boom, bing, bing, boom, bing, boom, boom, bing, 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 boom, 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 bing, bing, boom, boom, bing. It's backbeat. People hear that, man. They don't hear all that other stuff. They don't hear. People don't hear all of that. Still, when a lot of energy and stuff is going on, people in the audience, they don't. Just go to a concert, classical concerts. That's what classical composers need to learn now, 20th century music. People don't hear all of that. They don't care what the formulas for the music is. The music needs that, because if the music doesn't have the formulas in the form, then it won't be honest. It'll just be like people screaming or doing something that people can relate to. See, what you have to do is you have to take elements of stuff that people can relate to, like Stravinsky did. He's prime example. Elements of stuff people can relate to. Other elements has to be really on a very high intellectual level, which comes from studying. The forms have to be there, and they have to be correct, and the harmony has to be correct. You put all that stuff together, and you create something that elevates people. Well, New Orleans, Louis Armstrong left New Orleans in the 1920s. It's 1980 now. I grew up in the 1970s. New Orleans is a great town culturally, but there is no jazz in New Orleans. Jazz developed. Jazz developed. And after it developed, it left New Orleans. Charlie Parker and Dizzy and them cats, they went to New York. Manhattan is the center of the Western world right now, as far as everything goes. Manhattan, all the commerce, business, everything is located here. People have offices in Manhattan. All these skyscraper stuff going at a fast rate. This is the 20th century, man. This is this here. You go other places in the world, you have to respect everybody. But when you come here, you know that this is the place. The music is here now, it's not in New Orleans. When I first started playing, I didn't have any idea of what to play or anything. I would just be playing like scales and chords and stuff. But then we went on the road with Art Blakey, and that was a trip. I learned a lot doing that. I love Art Blakey, man.
He was in New York, and he had just finished Juilliard, and we were getting ready to change trumpet players anyhow, so he came down to the club, and he sat in one night. And our trumpet player, which was Valery Ponomarev, well, trumpet player from Russia, he decided he had to stay home because his wife was going to have a baby. So there was Wynton. It just happened, you know, it was really luck. It was really a blessing, and he was there. So he sat in, and that was it. And he decided to come with the band, because he was due to go with he had an invitation to go with the Boston Symphony Orchestra, so he turned that down. So he called his dad and asked his dad. Dad said, yeah, well, if you don't, I'm gonna box your ears here. So he went with me.
Like, I wish I could do that again now. There's a lot of things I didn't know, but that's what it was like. Just trying to learn the vocabulary of the music. Because, you know, we came up, man, jazz, and nobody knew what that was.
This is the classical music. That's why Wynton plays it. This is the highest level of performance on a musical instrument in any kind of music. Any kind. Because you come, just like I tell people every night, you come, we don't have no music up here. You know, and from the creator to the artist to the audience. And this is the classical music of this, on this planet at this time.
Well, when you first start off to write a composition, the first thing that you get is the inspiration for the theme. I'll say like this particular tune that I was playing is just, the melody is. So it's just a theme that I hear. And then from studying music, you get to what I call the logic of music. Like you take something like the Haydn Trumpet Concerto. Which is just, then, see what I mean? So that's the logic, that's how his logic is working. He takes one theme, then he does this with it. Thelonious Monk does that all the time. And when you get the themes, you take different ways of developing them. Now, what I'm showing you all how I'm doing it is for the band to play. So the bass is in 5/4, right? Then the bass goes boom, then the bass goes boom. That's what I'm gonna make the band do, like I just did. We'll slow down there. We'll go boom, then the bass will go. Then the bass goes. Now we're not in time, right? We get ahead of time then. In order to avoid making the music sound boring and going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, which is boring. So they're gonna be fooled into thinking this in the 3/4. And then when it does come in the 3/4, they're gonna say, damn, that's in 3/4. Of course, they won't know that it's 3/4, but their bodies will tell them that something different has occurred. And then they'll dig that. And see, that's the key to music, is the element of surprise. Because people, they don't know all the technical stuff. Except if you have pop music, then the surprise doesn't make a difference because they are bombarded with the same rhythm. And that's boring to people who think after a while. I mean, that's good if you want to go out and get high and get you some women or something. But, I mean, all women want to get men. I'm not trying to say no sexist type stuff. But if you really seriously want to listen to music for the enjoyment of your soul and just challenge you, intellectual stimulation as well as emotional stimulation, you want something that's a little more, especially since there's been thousands of years of great music written and played already. You know, Bach, Beethoven, Stravinsky, Monk, Louis Armstrong, Bird, everybody. So I don't think that the end result of that is Boy George or whatever. Nothing against those brothers, of course. All right, man, what we want to do with this music, we want it to be like living, like an organism or something. We did. We want the music to be moving and breathing. So now your part is in 5/4 and my part is in 3/4, right? Well, people who say that classical music is more technical than jazz, either A, don't know classical music, or B, don't know jazz. Anybody who knows both of them know that simply that's not true. The statement that jazz is more emotional, that's another example of what I call a noble savage music concept. Oh, they're so earthy, those people from the streets, all these stupid, dumb cliches that have just been passed on and continued year after year, and now they've become a working part of all of our vocabularies. Everybody just believes that that's true now. Oh, those Negroes, they grew up in such a heathen type fashion, they just have the ability to whatever. I mean, that's like some bull crap, man. So the whole thing is out of time. The whole thing is in time, but it's out of time. It's like we breathing. All people have the ability to feel emotion on whatever level they feel it on. The difference between a regular person who experiences something emotional or pain or anguish or whatever or happiness or sorrow, which we know passes at different rates for everybody. The difference between them and the artist is that the artist has the technique to transmit that through art. That's technique. That's what technique is used for. Technique is the thing that weeds out all the people who aren't gonna make it. And what you will find is that the greatest composers and the greatest musicians always have the greatest technique. And technique is not just velocity, which is playing fast or writing a lot of notes. Technique is the ability to me, technique is what enables whatever the performer or whoever the artist is to transmit high drama to the people on the highest level. That's what all art is about, drama, all art. Jazz in the club is one of the most stimulating artistic experiences that you can have. Because the people all in there, man, they're close and the sound is real energetic. The sound of the drums and the bass, man, swing. It's a different thing, man. It's just as hip. There's no way to describe it. See, you say hip, people think, oh, hip, man, hip. Nah, man, it's hip. You know, that's why we have the word. It's hip, and that's what it is. It's just something that can't be described because it's everything at one time. You know what I'm saying? It's intellectual, it's emotional, spiritual, it's everything. People are right there, they digging it. You see the people in sweat. I mean, it's everything, man. It's just nothing like it. Nothing like it. Well, you're conscious of the expectation and responsibility because you always read articles or whatever. But it's my responsibility to remain true to what I think stuff should be like. If people like the music, I hope they come, and I'm glad that they like it. If they don't like it, there's a whole bunch of other music for them to go out and like. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. Go check that out. It's cool with me. I'll check it out too with you. You know what I mean? But the only thing I don't like, I'm sick of idiots who have the audacity to put their opinions in print when they don't know anything about what they're talking about. I mean, there's guys who've never been to New Orleans talking about what we did in New Orleans, how my music is not indicative of the New Orleans flavor. I'm like, man, I lived in New Orleans, man. This kid, he probably traveled through New Orleans once. And everybody thinks that they're expert on what they call jazz. All the little chumps from college, they determine who's black, what's a middle class black, what's a poor black, a green black, or whatever, all these terms that they have, and what the Negroes are thinking, and why this music, it's like we need them to be a spokesman for us. And I think the reason, a lot of times I get into trouble with critics, man, because I don't need them to speak for me. Because I know what I think this stuff is. You know what I mean? I know what I think. I don't need to know what they think. Cats who don't even know how many bars are in the tune, who still think that Louis Armstrong was an intuitive genius, quote unquote. Whatever that is, man, intuitive genius. I mean, what does that mean, intuitive genius? I guess that means he didn't know what he was doing. If he didn't know what he was doing, he couldn't have been as consistent as he was. Consistency, that means you know what you're doing. You know, that's just other ways to say, well, there's no way that somebody like him could be who he was, because the message that he carried was too heavy. And one day people are going to be able to break down all of this ignorance and stupidity and just accept the music.
Thank you all very much. You've been listening to the great Mr. Kenny Kirkland on the piano. Kenny Kirkland. Mr. Jeff Watts on the drums. Jeff Watts. Mr. Charles Fambro on the bass. Wynton Marsalis on the tenor, soprano saxophone. You all be careful going home in the rain. They're selling umbrellas for $5 at the door. Thanks a lot and have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you all very much. You've been listening to the great Mr. Kenny Kirkland on the piano. Kenny Kirkland. Mr. Jeff Watts on the drums. Jeff Watts. Mr. Charles Fambro on the bass. Wynton Marsalis on the tenor, soprano saxophone. You all be careful going home in the rain. They're selling umbrellas for $5 at the door. Thanks a lot and have a good night.